At my mom's birthday dinner, my dad pointed at me and said, "This guest doesn't belong anymore." My cousins laughed. My sister raised her glass. Finally, I smirked and said, "Ben, dinner's on your card." I walked out. 30 minutes later, the waitstaff came back with the bill, $2,800. My sister called me screaming. I declined. And then came the angry calls from the rest of my family. It was the last birthday I ever attended in that family, the last time I let them drag me into their theater of politeness, stage smiles, and fake gratitude. I didn't know it then, but something snapped that night, something I'd been holding together for years without realizing how much pressure it was under. My mother's 62nd birthday was already shaping up to be one of those nights I dreaded. She picked this upscale Italian place in the middle of downtown, impossible to park, full of loud conversations about hedge funds and yoga retreats. Everyone acted like this was a rare treat, but I knew exactly how it would go. They'd order whatever they wanted, act like they were royalty, and then sit back when the bill came, pretending not to notice the waiter hovering near me. Because that's who I was to them. Not the middle daughter, not the loyal sister, just the wallet, the safety net, the woman with no kids, no husband, and apparently no personal life or priorities that mattered. My brother had a struggling real estate business and 3 kids. My sister was bouncing between gigs, always between apartments, always one rent check away from crying to our parents. And my parents? They'd long since retired into the fantasy that I existed solely to make up for what the others lacked. But this time I came with a plan. I brought a small gift from my mother, a photography book from a trip she once said she wanted to take but never did. It wasn't flashy, but it was thoughtful. And I didn't bring my wallet. On purpose. I wanted to see what would happen if, just this once, I didn't pick up the check like some invisible butler. They all pretended not to notice. Dinner started out normally. Everyone talked over each other. My dad ordered the most expensive bottle of wine, then pretended he couldn't see the prices on the menu. My sister made a point of talking about how stressed she'd been, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. My cousins, who weren't even close to my mom, came mostly for the free food and Instagram stories. I didn't say much. I just watched. Then, right after dessert, my dad stood up and tapped his glass. He gave this speech about how proud he was of our family, how grateful he was for my mother, how lucky he felt to have raised such strong, close-knit children. Then he turned to me. "This guest no longer belongs here." The table went quiet for half a second. Then my cousins laughed like it was a roast. My sister raised her glass and added, "Finally." I looked around. No one seemed confused. No one asked what the hell that was about. It wasn't a joke. It was planned. So I smiled and said, "Then dinner is on you." And I got up and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't make a scene. I just walked 2 blocks to my car and drove home in silence. It was strange. I felt calm, like I had just stepped out of a burning building and only now realized how hot it had been inside. About 30 minutes later, the waiter brought them the bill, $2,800. And that's when the calls started. First my sister, 6 missed calls, then my brother, then my dad, which almost never happens, then the texts. "You better not be serious right now. We can't pay for this. You always do this for family. You just left. Who does that? Are you punishing Mom? It's her birthday. I swear to God you're going to regret this." I turned off my phone and poured myself a drink. It wasn't just about the bill. That night, I finally saw it all clearly. They didn't invite me to celebrate. They invited me to pay for their celebration. And when they thought I might stop being useful, they decided to humiliate me. Publicly. With guests. With cousins. With my mom's old coworker watching. Around 10:30 p.m., someone rang my doorbell. I checked the cam. It was my parents and my brother. I didn't even have time to decide whether to open the door. They buzzed in when a neighbor walked out, and by the time I reached the hallway, they were already inside. They walked in like they owned the place, like it was still the old script, and I was just forgetting my lines. "We need to talk," my dad said. We talked for hours, and not the kind of talking that fixes anything. That night was just the beginning. They didn't knock like people who felt guilty. They knocked like people who were sure they were owed something. By the time I opened the door, they were already halfway in. My dad moved like he'd been rehearsing what to say all the way over. My mom wouldn't meet my eyes. My brother walked in last, quiet, hands in his pockets. Nobody said hi. "We just want to understand what that was all about." That's how my dad opened it, like I had flipped a table and stormed out of a wedding. My mom jumped in, saying how my leaving had ruined the mood and hurt people. She didn't say who, just people were hurt. My brother said it felt harsh, the way I left, like I'd made some private family tension into a public embarrassment. They circled me with guilt like wolves that hadn't hunted in a while. I asked them what they thought I should have done. Sit there and smile while they mocked me in front of guests? Laugh along like it was just a little family ribbing? My dad waved that off, said it was a joke, said I shouldn't take everything so personally. My mom said my sister didn't mean it the way it sounded. My brother said it wasn't about the words. It was about how I reacted. That's when I realized they weren't here to apologize. They were here to reset the script. I'd messed up the play. I'd ad-libbed. I was supposed to take the hit, maybe pout a little, and then quietly pull out my credit card when the bill came. They weren't angry that I walked out. They were angry that I didn't pay before I left. When I didn't respond, they moved on to the next part of the routine. My dad mentioned that things had been tight lately. My mom said my sister's rent was about to go up and it was stressing her out. My brother muttered something about car repairs. It was subtle, but not really. This was the moment where I was supposed to say, I get it, let me help. But I didn't. I told them I was done. That I couldn't keep being the one holding the whole structure up while getting nothing but passive aggression and disrespect in return. I told them what they said at that table was a line I didn't even know I was waiting for them to cross. And they crossed it. My mom's face dropped, like she had just realized this wasn't about one dinner. My dad tried to keep control of the room. He asked if I was cutting the family off over a misunderstanding. My brother surprisingly stayed quiet. He looked more awkward than upset, like he'd just realized he came to the wrong house for the wrong conversation. I said I needed space, a lot of it, and I needed them to leave. They didn't yell. They just looked confused, like I was malfunctioning in a way they couldn't diagnose. But they left. When the door closed, it felt different, final. The silence that followed was the kind that comes after you finally shut off a machine that's been humming for years in the background of your life. The next morning, I logged into my bank account and found the automatic transfer. Every month, the $100 went to my sister's rent. She never asked nicely. She just cried once months ago about losing her apartment, and somehow it became my problem to solve. I canceled it. No message, no warning. I didn't owe her one. She'd find out soon. 4 days, to be exact. And when she did, I knew exactly how this family would react. They'd accuse. They'd guilt. They'd spin a story where I was the one who changed, the one who abandoned them. And that's when things would really start unraveling. 4 days later, the storm hit, right on schedule. It started with a text from my sister. Rent bounced. What happened? Then came the call. I didn't answer. She called again, then again. I finally muted her number after the 7th try. An hour later, my mom called. Your sister's in tears. She could be evicted. She didn't know the payment wouldn't come. Why wouldn't you tell her? I didn't answer that one either, because the truth was simple. I didn't tell her because I didn't owe her. For over a year, I paid her rent, every month, without thanks, without fail. She never treated it like help. She treated it like payroll. Like I was just the unmarried, childless middle daughter whose life existed to keep everyone else afloat. And when she toasted my exile at that dinner, she had no idea she was also cutting off her own safety net. But I guess they all assumed I'd get over it, that I'd cool off and return to my role, just like every other time. Only this time I didn't. That night, my sister showed up at my building. I didn't let her in. She stood outside, calling and texting and sending voice messages like she was as trapped in a burning building. I don't have anywhere else to go. Why would you do this to me? You're seriously going to ruin my life over a dinner? The irony burned. I didn't ruin her life. I just stopped saving it. The next day, my dad called. This time he left a voicemail. This is family. You don't pull support over something like this. You're better than that, right? I'm better. I'm responsible. I'm dependable. I'm the one who pays. I'm the one who stays quiet while they disrespect me in public because that's what the better one does. I didn't respond. They didn't stop. For 2 straight days, my phone didn't stay quiet for more than 10 minutes. They rotated between guilt, pity, and anger. My brother even texted me something short. Don't punish the whole family because you're mad at her. That's when I realized they all thought this was about my sister. They didn't see it for what it was. Years of being used, expected to carry the weight while they complained about how hard their lives were. So I made a decision. I called my grandfather. He wasn't at the dinner. He's one of the few in the family who still has some distance from all the drama, mostly because he's the only one they still pretend to respect. I told him everything. From the moment my dad pointed at me to the moment they walked into my apartment acting like I'd done something unforgivable, I told him about the money, the rent, the manipulation, the entitlement. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. When I finished, he asked me one question. "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Tell them the truth. Tell the rest of the family what they didn't see. Tell them how they treat me. I'm done protecting them." He didn't argue. He said, "Okay." And just like that, the damage control began. Within a week, I started hearing things through extended family, second cousins, aunts I barely speak to, that my parents were furious, my sister was devastated, and I was twisting the story to make them look bad. But here's the thing, I didn't twist anything. I just stopped hiding it. After I spoke to my grandfather, I expected backlash, maybe a new wave of guilt text or one of those dramatic voicemails where my mom sobs just enough to make you feel like a criminal, but nothing came. 3 days of silence, then 4. I figured they were regrouping, maybe trying to get ahead of whatever he was going to say. Then my phone buzzed with a Facebook message from Carla. Carla is one of my mom's nieces, technically my cousin, but we'd never been close. She's quiet, observant, always kept a low profile at family gatherings. I used to think she wasn't paying attention to anything. Turns out, she was paying attention to everything. Her message was simple. "Hey, I heard what happened. I'm really sorry. I always knew something was off with how they treated you." That caught me off guard. I asked her how she knew, assuming it was just the usual gossip being passed around. She replied fast, "Your grandpa told everyone at brunch, said it was time people knew the truth." I found out later that he didn't just tell a few people. He dropped the entire story at a big family brunch, a table full of extended relatives, including people I hadn't seen in years. No build-up, no soft landing, just the facts. He told them about the birthday dinner, what my dad said, how my sister toasted my exclusion, how they all expected me to pay $2,800 while mocking me in public. Then he explained how I'd been paying my sister's rent for over a year, how they walked into my home demanding answers, never once thinking maybe they were the problem. According to Carla, some people looked stunned. A few of the older relatives tried to defend my parents, said maybe there was more to it, but most people just stayed quiet. Apparently it was the way he said it. No anger, no theatrics, just straight truth. And in that room, that carried weight. I didn't know how to respond to Carla. I just said, "Thank you." Later that night, I got a text from my dad. "You humiliated your mother." That was it. No questions. No acknowledgement of what really happened. No apology. Just that I'd made her look bad. That's what this was about. Not the rent, not the money, not even the dinner. It was about control. They were losing it, and they were panicking. I didn't reply. 2 more days passed. Then I got a message from the front desk of my building. I had a package. I hadn't ordered anything, so I figured it was a delivery mistake. But when I got there, I saw the box. Medium-sized, sloppily taped, no return address, my name written in Sharpie. Inside was a strange collection of things. A few old shirts I'd forgotten at my parents' house, a coffee mug from college, a school photo of me at 10 years old, and one of those paper cards from a dollar store. Completely blank, except for one sentence in the middle. "And if this is what you want, then here it is." No name, no explanation, just that. It was petty, passive-aggressive, but it told me everything I needed to know. They weren't sorry. They were trying to spin it into my abandonment. I was the villain in their new version of the story. I took the box and dropped it off at the donation center down the street. I didn't need any of it. It was never about the objects anyway. That night, I made it official. I left every group chat, removed myself from every family thread, blocked my sister, my dad, my mom, even my brother, changed my phone number, updated my contact info with the few relatives who actually treated me like a person. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't even emotional, just necessary. I thought they'd retaliate, maybe try to show up at my place again, try to drag more people into it. But what happened next surprised me more than anything. They adapted. A week after I cut them off, I heard from Carla again. She sent me a screenshot of my sister's Instagram story. It was her, my parents, and my brother on a beach somewhere. Matching drinks, fake smiles, hashtags about family time and hard-earned breaks. Apparently, my parents had started covering her rent again. Not only that, they were traveling, posting meals and cocktails, rebuilding stronger captions. The same people who swore they couldn't survive without my financial help were now suddenly just fine. Better than fine. And that's when it hit me. They were never struggling. They were just using me because I let them. When I saw the photo, I just stared. There they were, my parents, my sister, and my brother, posing on a beach somewhere that definitely wasn't local. Sunsets, cocktails, hotel cabanas in the background. Hashtags like hashtag finally peace and hashtag family strong in the caption. My sister had tagged a luxury resort in Florida. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe some sign they were struggling, some hint that they missed me. But no, they looked better than ever, like nothing had happened, like I never existed. It hit differently, not because I missed them. I didn't, not anymore. It was the ease of it that got to me, the speed. For years, they'd built this entire story around how hard their lives were. My parents always cutting back, my sister always on the edge, my brother always doing his best with what little he had. And now they were drinking frozen daiquiris and smiling like they'd just escaped a hostage situation. I hadn't even been gone 2 weeks. That same evening, Carla messaged me again. This time, she sent screenshots, texts my sister had been forwarding to the extended family. In one, she said I unexpectedly pulled financial support and left her facing eviction. In another, she implied I'd been emotionally unstable for a while and was punishing the family for being happy without me. The irony was almost impressive. They were better off without me, financially, emotionally, socially, and yet somehow I was the villain for walking away. I didn't respond to Carla right away. I needed time to think. But the more I sat with it, the more something became clear. I had spent years managing their reality, paying for things quietly, never saying anything, never telling anyone what I did for them. And now that I wasn't there to filter it all, they were spinning it their way. They had learned one thing from me. Silence creates power. But now it was working against me. So I wrote something. It wasn't an angry message, it wasn't a rant. It was just the truth, start to finish. I included dates, amounts, and names. I explained how I'd been paying my sister's rent every month for over a year, how I had covered 2 of my parents' vacations, including one they told the family was a gift from all the kids, how my brother had sent me grocery lists for his kids, and I had quietly paid them, never asking for anything back. I added screenshots of payment receipts, not to humiliate, but to make it real. And I ended it like this. I didn't walk away because I was angry. I walked away because I finally understood that being useful to people isn't the same as being valued by them. I'm not asking anyone to take sides. I just won't keep lying by staying silent. I sent it to 8 people. Just 8. The ones I knew were getting the twisted version from my parents, the ones who had been liking those fake beach posts and commenting things like, "So happy to see you smiling again." Most didn't reply, but 2 did. One was my cousin Nathan. He just said, "I had no idea. I'm sorry, Celine. That's far-farmed. Get up." The other was my uncle, my mom's brother. We hadn't spoken in years. His message surprised me. I always wondered why your parents treated you like you owed them something. Now I get it. Thank you for saying something. Later that night, I got a call from an unknown number. I ignored it. Then came the voicemail. It was my mom. Her voice was cold. No apology, just a sharp tone I'd heard many times before. "I hope you're happy. People are talking. You've embarrassed this family enough. You always knew how to twist things to make yourself look good." She hung up after that. That was the whole message. Not a single word about the truth of what I'd said. Not a denial, just outrage that someone else had heard it. And then, the final surprise, my grandfather called. He'd heard what I sent out. I expected him to be upset, maybe ask me to calm things down. But he didn't. He said, "You told the truth. That's more than most of them have done in a lifetime." That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not because they were finally exposed, not because I won, but because, for once, I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. And they weren't falling apart without me. They were thriving. Because the truth was, they'd always had the money, always had the time. They just didn't want to spend it on themselves, not when I was willing to foot the bill. I wasn't the villain. I was just the exit plan. And now they needed a new one. The silence didn't last. 2 weeks after I sent the message, I got a letter in the mail. A real physical letter, no return address, typed envelope, printed on thick white paper, like a wedding invitation. For a second, I thought it might be a legal notice. Maybe they were threatening me now. But when I opened it, the first thing I noticed was the handwriting. My dad's. But it wasn't addressed to me. It was a draft, meant for someone else. The letter was written to a relative, someone from our grandfather's side. It was a weak attempt at damage control. It explained that I'd had a breakdown after years of isolation, that I'd become bitter after being alone for so long, that they'd done everything they could to support me. They never sent it. Somehow it ended up in my mailbox. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone in the family, tired of the lies, wanted me to see it. I'll never know. What I do know is that it confirmed what I already suspected. They weren't just letting me go. They were trying to erase me. They weren't content with me walking away. They needed to make sure I was the broken one, not them. So I made the final move. I took down the last of what tied us together. A shared storage unit I had been paying for, filled with boxes of family junk they never once bothered to collect. A cell phone plan my sister was still somehow on. I shut down everything. Cut the cords. Canceled the services. Transferred ownership of the few shared assets I could legally remove myself from. And then, for the first time in my adult life, I blocked my mother. I hesitated before doing it. Not because I thought she deserved another chance. She didn't. But because I knew the firestorm it would trigger. But in the end, I tapped block. And I didn't look back. The next few days were quiet. But then came something unexpected. A message from my grandfather. Short, almost cryptic. They're scrambling. They didn't know you'd go this far. I called him. He told me that after they realized I'd fully cut them off, no numbers, no emails, no weigh-in, they started turning on each other. My dad blamed my sister for pushing too far at the dinner. My sister blamed my mom for letting it all go public. My brother was apparently trying to stay out of it, but was secretly asking cousins if they thought I'd ever come around. Then he said something I didn't expect. Your mom's been calling me, says they want to talk again, but not to apologize, to fix their reputation. That was it. Not to fix anything with me, not to understand, just to home salvage what other people thought of them. And that was the moment I knew I had made the right choice. All of them, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, they'd grown used to treating people like pieces in a game. I was just the one who stopped playing. They were still traveling, still paying rent, still smiling in pictures. But the shine was starting to fade. People were asking questions. People were starting to notice that the story didn't line up. And the more they tried to protect their image, the more obvious it became. They weren't victims. They were just used to never being told no. Now they're on their own. And they don't like it. It's been 3 months since I blocked them. No more calls, no letters, no packages. It's like I disappeared. And honestly, it's been the calmest stretch of time I've had in years. I didn't realize how much noise they brought into my life until it was gone. But yesterday I got a call from Carla. She said she ran into my sister. At the airport of all places. My parents were with her. Apparently they were flying to Costa Rica. They've been posting less on social media. The captions have changed. Now, it's all vague quotes about letting go of toxic people and finding strength in adversity. They're clearly still trying to control the story, but you can feel the shift. There's no joy behind it, Carla said. Just maintenance. She said my sister looked tired. Not physically, emotionally, worn out. Like the performative part of it all was starting to drag her down. But the most unexpected part? Carla said my mom asked about me. She didn't say anything kind. Just asked if I was still angry. Asked if I was still talking to people. And then she said something weird. She'll come around. They always do. Yeah, so. Like I'm not even me anymore. Just a phase. A rebellious version of Celine that will eventually dissolve and return to the role they designed. They still don't get it. This isn't a tantrum. And this is peace. And I'm not coming back. I think that's what shocks them the most. That I haven't tried to come back. Haven't sent a message. Haven't cracked open the door. Haven't checked in to see how they're doing. Because that's what I always did. Even after the insults, the cold shoulders, the guilt trips, even when they made me feel like a guest in my own family, I always circled back. But not this time. And every day that passes, I think they realize a little more that I meant it. I used to wonder if I'd feel regret. If there would be a moment where the silence became too much, where I missed them enough to forget everything that happened. But that moment never came. Instead, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Got clarity. I started remembering who I was before I became their safety net, before I became the one who always understood, the one who let it go, the one who could handle it. I started making plans for myself. I booked a solo trip, something small, a week in the mountains, no signal, no noise, just me. I started reading again, cooking again, reaching out to friends I'd let drift because I was always too drained by family drama. I reclaimed my space. I rearranged my apartment, cleared out closets full of other people's things, started saying no, clean, unapologetic no's, to people who only showed up when they needed something. It felt like breathing again after years underwater. And somewhere in all that stillness, I started to feel something wild. Hope, Hess. Not for reconciliation, not for them to change, but for me, for what life could look like when it wasn't filtered through their needs and their moods. One afternoon, I got coffee with Carla. We hadn't seen each other in person since all of it happened. She looked at me for a long moment before saying, "You look light." I laughed. "I feel it." She told me more about what had been going on behind the scenes. Apparently, after I cut them off, my parents tried to rally some of the extended family to their side, but it didn't go as planned. Too many people had heard the truth. Too many had seen the receipts. Too many remembered all the little moments they'd brushed off before. The cracks were showing. Carla said the news story was that I was going through something and needed time to heal. They were just giving me space. It was their way of saving face without admitting guilt. "They still think you'll come back," Carla said. I nodded. They don't realize there's nothing to come back to. Because that's the thing. I didn't just walk away from a bad night or a cruel comment. I walked away from a system, a role, a script I didn't write but kept performing out of obligation. And once I stepped out of it, I saw it for what it really was. A machine that ran on guilt, silence, and unspoken rules that only applied to me. They don't miss me. They miss what I did for them. The money, the emotional labor, the quiet forgiveness. And maybe somewhere deep down they know that version of me is gone. A few days ago, I got another letter. This time from my mom. Not handwritten, not typed, just a folded piece of paper slipped into my mailbox. No envelope. Sentence. "We still love you, no matter what you think." I stared at it for a while. Love? What kind of love humiliates you in public? What kind of love uses you until you break, then paints you as the villain when you finally say enough? Love to them is a leash. It's currency, a weapon, a thing they extend only when you play your part. I folded the note and tossed it. Not because it made me angry, because it didn't matter anymore. I don't need their version of love. I'm building something different now. Something honest. Something quiet. Something mine. It's strange how much space you gain when you stop trying to make yourself small enough to fit inside other people's comfort zones. I used to shrink in conversations with my family, bite my tongue, soften my words, pad the truth. I thought that was maturity. I thought that was love. But it wasn't. It was survival. And now that I'm not surviving them anymore, I'm learning how to live. A few weeks ago, I was walking through the farmer's market when I passed this little booth selling handmade journals. The woman behind the table smiled at me, not like a salesperson, but like someone who saw something in my face. "You look like you have stories to write," she said. I bought a journal. That night, I opened it and wrote just one sentence on the first page. "I will not apologize for outgrowing the version of me that made you comfortable. It's not for them, it's for me." It's a reminder that I'm not the villain in their story. I'm the author of mine. And maybe one day, if they ever really want to know me, the real me, not the caricature they crafted to carry their needs, they'll find that version on their own. But I'm not waiting for that day. I'm not checking the mailbox for apologies. I'm not scanning social media for signs of remorse. I'm not sitting in some emotional waiting room hoping they'll change. Because I already did, and I'm proud of that. The truth is, I don't hate them. I don't wish them harm. I don't hope they fall apart without me. I just hope they finally realize that love isn't supposed to be conditional, that family isn't supposed to mean ownership, that kindness isn't weakness, and silence isn't consent. And if they never do, that's okay too, because I'm not carrying that weight anymore. I'm traveling lighter now. My phone is quieter, my mind is calmer. My world is smaller, but fuller. I've surrounded myself with people who know me, not because I pay for things, not because I never say no, but because they value who I am, not just what I provide. That's the life I'm building. And if that makes me the villain in someone else's story, so be it. I'd rather be the villain than the victim. I'd rather walk away than keep pretending. I'd rather choose peace than perform love. And for the first time in my life, I have. This is not a tantrum. This is not a phase. This is not a warning shot or a silent plea. This is the ending. And also the beginning. I am Celine. And I'm finally home.